What are we going to talk about today? What should you expect? Well, I'm going to talk about 8 big reasons why you need to have a book in your business. How many coaches are in the room? Okay, people in transition in the room. All right, people kind of on the edge of maybe quitting their job when they go back after Mind Valley U. Awesome, awesome. Okay, this is perfect. You are in the right place. So for those of you who are absolutely terrified about writing a book, I'm going to reframe what you actually think of the whole daunting, scary task of writing a book. Because as Sid said, we kind of did this a few times together. And I do these writing workshops around the world, and I also do these grit of writing workshops as well. So we're finally going to create your book outline. So if I can ask you guys to take out your journals, pens, papers, something that you can take notes with. Half of the presentation is going to be some of those reasons, and then the other half, we will actually do a rapid fire exercise. Does that sound good? Awesome. Cool. And if I'm bouncing up and down, that means he's kicking, because he wants to be in the room too. Okay, so yes, I'm an international best-selling author, wrote these amazing books, one of which I co-authored with Ajit. We actually wrote the book of coaching a year ago, actually, in Burma, Burma and Thailand, and we did it in 8 days, and that's for another presentation. But, well, the first thing that I want to get into is for those of you launching your next chapter, for those of you in transition, one thing that a book can do is actually launch your next whatever it is, or actually fuel your next purpose. And so this lovely lady was me quite a few years ago, actually. And so my teeth were whiter back then in that photo, and I was a cosmetic dentist. So on the outside, I had all of the traditional trappings of success. But there, can anybody guess? I was internally, emotionally dead. I was dead to the world. I had a relationship that was crumbling, a marriage actually that was failing, and I had no idea who I was. Can anybody relate to that story? Yeah. Yeah. So how do you go from that to then this? Well, I ended up leaving the relationship and leaving everything behind that I knew to start new. And today you guys are all in the room because you guys want to have either transformation for yourself, for your business, or for what is next to come, right? Right? Awesome. So part of my journey was then, after I left all of that, left the career, sold the practice, and started pretty much over, I actually started to do more research, and because I'm a science geek at heart, I was in dental school for a very long time, I really wanted to know how leaders made decisions, because we didn't really learn that in medical or dental school. So that was one. And two, I was always a big fan of behavioral psychology and human dynamics since I was a little girl. So with my curiosity, it took me to over 40 countries to really understand how we process our emotions and why that's so valuable in leadership. And then, of course, it created a movement of emotional grit, hence launching my next chapter. So number 2, what a book can actually do for you is to differentiate you. And since we have so many coaches and teachers and educators in the room, you could probably relate to this, that it can be a saturated market, right? Yes? Yes? I'm getting some nods, great. And so I'm going to talk to you about Matt. And Matt, we actually spent some time together on one of the retreats that I did to get his book out. And he, by training, was a financial planner for about 20 years. And he worked primarily with baby boomers. But he had a very personal story. and his mother passed away with $100,000 liquid cash in her bank account. What that meant was he really wanted to revolutionize the whole retirement process. He wanted to give other people the ability to have fun while they're retiring, not worry about being a penny pincher or anything like that, and they can actually enjoy some of their later years in their lives. And so we created the Retirement Dreammaker. And so what that did for him was not only add some depth to the work that he's already doing in financial planning, but he also merged it with personal development. Can somebody see that? How that can actually add a differentiation factor? And it was because of a personal story. Each of you have personal stories that you may or may not be okay to share. However, you may not realize how it actually can impact somebody else. Credibility and trust is number 3. That's exactly what a book can give you. Credibility and trust. And we talked to you a little bit, I think, in Ajit's presentation about the book of coaching and what that has done, and the actual goal is to transform the lives of coaches. The subtitle in the book of coaching is For Extraordinary Coaches. So that in and of itself is really to claim the fact that we actually want to be able to serve, love, and be that for a lot of coaches that come through our virtual doors. Not only that, with many of the followers that Ajit has already had because of EverCoach and Mind Valley Teach, his next book is coming out called Live Big. And so this is actually going to be talking a little bit more broader. So when you have already established credibility and trust with your followers, guess what? You can start introducing other topics that you want to talk about. Number 4. This is my favorite because when I work with a lot of people in transition, they're like, well, how can I actually scale my business? I've already exited one company or I'm leaving corporate. What to do next? Well, this can actually be your business card. In fact, when I wrote Emotional Grit, it was really around the time we had an election a couple of years ago, and this was really about compassionate leadership, how leaders make decisions, how we can have more empathy and compassion, and what actually happens when you have resilience. I use GRIT as an acronym to grow, reveal, innovate, and transform. Parts of your life that you may or may not like, but then how to actually step into what you really want to create. And so that opened a lot of doors to corporations, to organizations, to speak at Google, to speak at women's conferences and things like that. So that can be your gateway and your business card to do workshops and things like that because you have something that's tangible. You have something that's printed. You have something for people to take home. When you actually do workshops, you actually can have it in the back of the room or bring it to you or bring it with you when you're actually doing long day events, retreats, networking events. You always have it and it never, ever goes stale. That's with you for life, right? Number 5, the biggest thing you can create with your book is a movement. It's pretty much why many of you are here. This lovely book from this brilliant man, Vishen Lakhiani, The Code of the Extraordinary Mind. He created a whole language. We've been talking about rules and crushing rules all day long. How many of you have read the rules somewhere but have been familiar with it before you walked into this room? Pretty much everyone in the room. What about unfuckwithable? I even have a shirt that says unfuckwithable. Culturescape, okay? You can create your own language and buzzwords that will actually go and can go viral. It can also be a little community, kind of like an almost, I don't like to say the word exclusivity, but it could be an exclusivity thing for your followers, for your fans. That can make you stand out. And the concepts that you teach that can actually stick, right? Number 6, This is for those of you who actually have businesses or are trying to figure out how a book can generate any revenue. Well, in actuality, it can, because it can be your business ecosystem. I think I shared with you one of our biggest mantras between Ajit and I is the fact that we serve love. We both wear one of these intention bracelets that really showcase that, and I think even most of our team, Sid has one, and some of our other team members have this. But it's really to live our values and share our values on our highest level that we possibly can. Now, when you go on evercoach.com, what you will also find is that all of the trainings, all of the courses, all of the webinars, how many of you have been on evercoach.com? Awesome. So that is basically on the back of the book of coaching. Essentially, when you have the book of coaching, after each chapter, you can see that there's a webinar, that there are resources, that there are things that actually guide you back to your extended learning on evercoach.com. Ajit and I also run a business accelerator that helps you transform your business. It's 6 months, and that's also found on this website. So for those of you who think you can't build a business ecosystem on the back of your books, let's just say it with me, guys. It's a brule. It's a brule, right? So, number 7, it can actually be a door opener. And what I mean by this is to every single opportunity that you may or may not have even thought of. Now, many of you may know this man, or have heard of him, or have seen him on stage, have seen him talk, Jason Goldberg. But I don't know, how many of you know that he's also a best-selling author? Raise your hands. Okay, well, he wrote this book, Prison Break, and that really got him into doing several different types of things, speaking on different stages, even on TED stages, radio, news, you name it, being one of the lead trainers for Master Circle. So this, you guys, is really important because that is how your brand and you can actually evolve as a trainer, as a coach, as a speaker, as a workshop facilitator, as a healer, just by adding the element of a book. And lastly, well, let's talk about brand building. So a few years ago, I launched the book Emotional Grit. And what we wanted to do to evolve in this next stage of serving entrepreneurs and serving coaches, well, one of the biggest things that builds resilience is humor and having fun and adding a little bit of a sense of play. And so we launched the schoolofgrit.tv, which is a funny spoof series. Has anybody ever seen an episode in here? Ah, a few people. Awesome. Cool. Awesome. And if you haven't, you may want to check it out because it actually goes through the nitty-gritty of any entrepreneur or any coach, because things can get tough and things can get hard, and it doesn't have to be so serious all the time. So we add a little dimension of play. Hence, that can be your next evolution of your brand because you already have a staple. Does everybody understand how that works? Yeah? Cool.